Uh, can you see my presentation?
I think your presentation is behind the atrás, Simone.
Yes, it's behind this window that you opened.
I think you have to close
to minimize this.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Yes.
But
yes, got. Now we can see.
Now you can see my presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I cannot see you, and I cannot see me.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's okay. The main thing that
it's not so good, but is it this?
It is like this.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Irina Migranova. I'm from Russia, Ufa, Bashkir State University. I'm an associate professor, and now I'm going to speak a little bit about gender asymmetry. Can you see the second slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Very nice. Okay. Gender categories play an important role in social practices that ensure regular functioning of gender principles, where the male-female dichotomy is a fundamental and relevant principle of separation of people. Linguistic practices give numerous examples of androcentric asymmetry and social ranking of gender categories, when one of the classes is considered to be non-autonomous or less autonomous compared to the second. The archaic nature of gender stereotypes that discriminate women is evidenced by proverbs and sayings since Bible times. Well, you can see some examples on the slide. We conducted a psycholinguistic experiment in order to identify the specifics of perception and understanding of the scientific text through the prism of the gender component. We tried to trace how the semantic projection of the recipient's gender-oriented consciousness on the perception and understanding of the scientific text is actualized. The experiment was, in fact, an identification diagnostic assessment of scientific texts by anonymous authors in order to determine the gender of the authors. It was important to know why the respondent made a choice in favor of the gender of a particular author, male or female. Therefore, each participant of the experiment had to explain by what parameters he or she made his choice. Having analyzed all the reactions, which are in fact evaluated characteristics, we tried to trace the actualization of the phenomenon of gender asymmetry, wherein less value is attributed to women in society than to men. Now I suggest you to consider the response reactions of our female audience. Here on the slide, you can see some response reactions to the male texts by the female participants. Here you can see a percentage ratio of positive assessments of male texts in comparison with other types of reactions by the female audience. The data obtained shows that, in fact, the audience gave a high assessment to the texts, believing them to be written by men, which allows to suggest that a scientific text is a text produced by a man and not a woman. Here on this slide, we can see the response reactions to the female texts by the female audience. So this is how the female audience characterized the texts, considering them to have been produced by women. We can see that the explanations with a pronounced negative assessment or with the, so to say, attribution to the female text of means and techniques that do not correspond to the scientific style, which in fact is also a negative reaction. So it is obvious that the female audience assesses the intellectual abilities of men higher than those of women. And as we can see, women's texts are attributed, so to say, with negative characteristics, with accusations of excessive talkativeness and inability to present the essence. Here we can see the percentage ratio of negative assessments of female texts in comparison with other types of reactions by the female audience. The phenomenon of a certain prejudice of women against themselves was previously identified in the field of scientific activity and described in a number of studies. So the conclusions, here are the conclusions. The first one is we could clearly see that both the men and women demonstrate the presence of a value-based asymmetry in their consciousness, within which less value is attributed to women in the society than to men. In spite of modern ideas about gender equality, artists evaluate texts through the prism of standards and stereotypes that are essential for their culture. And another conclusion is that despite the significant revision of the male-female roles within the context of modern society, the multidimensional processes of changing the distribution of professional responsibilities, social status, the traditional system of differentiation of sexual roles has not changed significantly, as evidenced by the results of our experimental study. Thank you very much for your attention. I think that's all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your attention.
Excellent. The results are interesting. The theme, the subject of your research is interesting because have an idea about this kind of situation. If I have female texts, I like more, and if I have male texts, I don't like.
Well, in fact, they were not male texts and female texts because the participants did not know. They believed the texts to be male or female.
Okay.
Characterized them from their point of view.
Okay.
In fact, they were not and there were cases when they were not right to guess. Very often they confused.
Okay, yes, okay. Sorry because I didn't understand about this, but yes, the people can pay attention to the stylist of female or male can be. They have impressions that this text can be written for female or male. It's possible, no?
When I chose the text for the experiment, I intentionally took some texts. For example, I remember that exactly that there were some men texts which were written in a way as if they were women's texts, because if I was a participant of the experiment, well, it would be really difficult for me because some of the texts, some of the men's texts were really like women from my point of view.
Okay.
With a lot of adjectives, a lot of descriptions. In fact, it was really a surprise to see such phenomenon in a scientific text.
Yes, because we think that scientific texts are usually more neutral, but then in your
Very
study we
neutral.
perceive that it's not, right?
According to the definition, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Interesting.
Thank you very much.
Irina. Tell Irina. Where is she?
She's here.
She's here.
Irina, are you hearing me? I don't
Yes.
see you anymore. Well, I think that one interesting point that you research, very nice research, showed is the auto-depreciation women have to themselves. They show that they don't give them so great importance as they do to the men scientific voice.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a very interesting.
Oh, there's just a problem. She left the room.
Yeah. I think that she tried to finish the sharing presentation and can be click in the button for going out.
Yes, maybe she pressed the red button instead of the one to unshare, I don't know, the presentation.
Yeah.
This occurs with computers.
Yeah.
If you point to the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's very common.
Sometimes it's a disaster.
She's back.
Yeah.
Your microphone is off. Good enough.
I'm really sorry, that's internet connection.
Okay. Sorry. I really liked the subject of your presentation. mainly because nowadays we think at least people try to show how men and women are equal, right? And it's not, right? We know, as Professor Leonor also said, yes, about this. It's very interesting.
Yes, in fact, it was the reason why we decided to conduct this research, because we were sure that the results will be completely different. But as we could see, the situation maybe, well, has not changed greatly from the Bible times. Well, but we should take into account our specifics, because I do, well, I can guess that the situation may be different in the place where you live, because you should take into account that the place where I live, it's a kind of mixture of European and Eastern cultures, and there are a lot of people with the well, like, well, maybe it would be difficult to explain, because the most part of the inhabitants are Bashkirian, which are not maybe in, well, to some, well, so we cannot be compared with the Western people. Maybe that's why we have such results, because, well, if the
Yes, we
same
see.
experiment was conducted somewhere, well, in Europe, I think the results may be different.
Probably we can perceive that cultural differences around the continent, right? And probably if you'd apply your research in different places, for example, America, Europe, and Middle Eastern countries, the result would be completely different, I think, right?
But anyway, may I tell you something, that for the same scientific job, women salaries are lower than men salaries. This is
In our
this is
country,
proved. This is proved. For the same scientific job.
That's really true. That's why people still fight a lot. Women fight a lot to overcome the differences, right? Did you raise your hand, Professor?
May I ask you something? Who is conducting, who is going to speak in this regular section, the order? There is nobody.
Nobody else. Just I presented first, and then Irina presented, right? And the next person is not here yet, and we were waiting because the session goes up to 1 p.m. here.
One
1 and
Brazilian time,
yes,
zone time,
yes.
because Irina, for instance, I think that now, Irina, what time is it now in your city?
in Ufa, almost 9 in the evening, almost time to go to bed.
That's very different. We are having lunch almost.
Professor Leonor, your microphone is turned off.
I am asking who else is going to present a paper in this regular session that is here. Sabrina?
Nobody else. Nobody else.
Nobody else?
No, we were just waiting for some minutes to see if the next one would come, right?
Will come. Okay.
I don't know. No, we are not sure.
Yes. Now.
You are not sure.
Yes.
Some people sometimes cannot manage how to get to the place, isn't?
Yes, possibly.
So they don't have the link, and or something, I don't know.
Yes.
But perhaps we can continue talking ourselves, not to waste time, because this subject of the women situation is very, very far from being solved.
That's
right?
true.
One of the problems is the overload of work women have all over the world, accumulating their jobs with what they have to do at home, and an overweight of work to support, isn't? To take care of children, to prepare meals, to make shopping and everything, and so it's they are overloaded with work, isn't? This is a problem. And what is the situation in your country, Irina, about this overload work women have to afford? Or do men help them at home in your country, or isn't the case?
I think, like in most countries, of course not. All the leading positions are held by men. Women's salaries are substantially lower than men's, as you have just said. Absolutely. Well, by the way, the place where I live, it's a Muslim republic, so you can suggest what the situation is here. Of course, all the women here are in inferior position in comparison with men.
Mm-hmm. One thing that is interesting to discuss is some proposals of sexual directed minorities to change language. I mean, they propose, for instance, introducing new personal pronouns. For instance, if you have the masculine, the feminine pronoun, he, she, they suggest another pronoun because they feel that they are not contemplated in their language. I have my point of view, but perhaps you would like to say something about this subject. It concerns language, so it is an interesting subject to be discussed by psycholinguists. What do you think about this subject? Do you have a point of view about this, or never thought about that? Silence.
Yeah, she's off again.
And do you want that I ask? You know that um, uh, there are sexual directed minorities preferences that propose some changes in the language because they feel that they are discriminated. For instance, usually we have the agreement uh, uh, gender in many languages, and we have only feminine and masculine. You see, for instance, in Portuguese, we have ele, ela.
It's the pronoun for
And
he.
they suggest introducing another form in order to be contemplated. And I asked, what is your opinion about that? I have one opinion about that, but I would like to, I don't want to influence your minds. So if you have an opinion, if you have ever thought about that, this was my question. Is it clear now? Was Simone or Sabrina who asked for?
I think it's Irina's paper, right? Is that?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, but I have missed a lot because of the internet connection. So I haven't well understood what the question was, but what I would like to say and what is for sure is that women here in this society tend to underestimate themselves. I do not know, consciously or unconsciously, but both men and women here in our society assess or give higher assessment to men than to women. And maybe that is the problem, that women here underestimate themselves. But I would be very grateful if you repeat the question once again, because I didn't catch.
that the problem is a very deep one, very profound. It's a kind of a very long cosmovision about the women situation, and it will. I think that it will not be easy to remove all these this conception that is so old. There are stereotypes very, very deeply uh, 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 found in our minds. And so these are stereotypes, and to remove them, sometimes they are not so well conscious. Sometimes we are surrounded by this mentality, and the stereotypes are deeply buried in our minds.
It's culture. It seems that it is in our culture to improve men and diminuir, how do you say, raise women, I think.
Lower.
Lower, yes. It's very bad.
Yeah, and it is interesting to observe that it is not a phenomenon observed only in high classes,
Yeah.
social high classes, but on the contrary, sometimes among lower classes, this misconception is more deeply buried than we will find in almost in all social classes the same problem.
In lower classes, yes, more, absolutely, because gender stereotypes actually rule the relations, social relations in lower classes here in our society, in the place where I live.
Well, I think that our colleagues will not arrive anymore. What do you think about that?
Yes, the last person is not here to present.
So perhaps we can finish.
The monitor before suggested that we can wait to 1 p.m. for us in Brazil.
We have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, there are 3 minutes.
Yeah.